Everyone see my screen now? Okay. To start, I'll be discussing for our agenda today, with introducing quantum and what we do. Then we'll go through why is tape not dead, and following would be what is ransomware and how do we protect from ransomware attacks. Next would be the 3211 data protection rule. And I will also show you the quantum scalar tape library portfolio. And lastly, some quantum tape library use cases. So Quantum is already a 40-year trusted storage specialist. And we are already a trusted for 20 years for managing video and unstructured data. So we have about 30,000 active support contracts worldwide, and more than 44 exabytes of data utilizes quantum solutions. So as shown in the images on the right, quantum provides solutions across different industries or use cases such as data center requirements like backups, also in healthcare, where data such as X-ray, CT scans, or any patient lab test results that may reside in quantum solutions. So we also provide solutions in autonomous vehicle use cases. One example would be in moving vessels such as trains, planes that require storages for surveillance. So there are other use cases as well for like air defense, physical security, or CCTV, for IoT, as well as for smart cities. So there's a study conducted by IDC. So IDC is the International Data Corporation. They are the premier global provider of market intelligence, advisory services, and events for IT, in telco, and also in consumer technology markets. So from one of the IDC DataSphere reports, it was said that by 2025, 80% of data is unstructured, comprised of videos, images, files, and objects. So with the increasing role of edge computing, the state of data readiness across industries, the challenges and trends would potentially grow to about 175 zettabytes by 2025. So the volume of data created, captured, and replicated is growing fast everywhere. So the ongoing digitization, the impact of new technologies, and the data-driven economy are some contributors of this rapid growth. Here's Quantum's full portfolio. Starting from the left, we have our CatDV software. So it's a media management workflow orchestration platform that helps organizations with large volumes of video, audio, and metadata for effective data collaboration within the organization. So typically, these are companies that are video heavy, like the media and entertainment. So next to it is Quantum's flagship solution. We call it our StorNext file system. So it enables the different operating systems to access a shared storage over SAN, utilizing a fiber channel network. It can be over LAN, utilizing iSCSI or NAS, sharing it via CIFS for Windows, NFS for Unix and Linux. And it also acts as a storage manager to tier the data across different types of storages, whether it's disk, tape, or cloud. So that's typically the StorNext file system. So next to beside the StorNext, we have our ATFS, or what we call the all-terrain file system. So basically, this is our Quantum's NAS solution. So it leverages on data classification to provide easy search of your data by setting up tags on your data upon ingest, which is currently unique for with Quantum. Other unique features of ATFS are it can tier the data to the cloud, whether it's a public cloud such as AWS and Azure, or tier it to a private cloud such as object storages that can be located local to your data center or any co-located data center. Then Quantum also have servers and storages specific for surveillance, or you can say CCTV requirements, IoT, and smart cities. And also Quantum has recently acquired Pivot3. So if you heard of Pivot3, it's a hyper-converged infrastructure specific for video surveillance requirements. Then the next three boxes on the right are storages that can be utilized for tiering during the whole data lifecycle management of the data. So I have slides to show you, but we are going to focus on the scalar tape libraries. And ActiveScale is the object storage as the private cloud storages. So it is a disk-based archive storage for customers that have, you can say, tapeless standards. So next to it, we have our scalar tape libraries that we will be focusing later. And lastly, we have our Quantum DXi, which is Quantum's purpose-built backup appliances with the deduplication feature, mainly for backups that require performance to meet certain SLAs such as RTO and RPO, and normally are for short-term backups. Then here's a list of Quantum's global customers. So if you notice, all customers shown here are outside the Philippines. We also have a wide list of local customers across different industries, from banks, from broadcasting or media and entertainment, to telco, to hotels and casinos, semiconductor companies, and in governments. So, but normally we would ask for our existing customers here in the Philippines for their permission to share them as references. So if you would like local customer references, let us know and we can share that on a separate session. And here's a general or a typical use case for enterprise backup and archive. So whether you are utilizing a 100% virtualized environment or a physical environment or a mix of both, it utilizes the primary storage for your production systems, whereby you can protect your data from seconds to days using the primary storage features such as CDP or continuous data protection, snapshots, clones, and replications to another site. So while protecting your data from days to months, typically you would have another storage, a tier 2 storage, as you can say, apart from the primary storage for your backups. So normally we have solutions for that. We call that the DXi that I have previously mentioned. So it can provide the SLA, or we can meet the backup windows, and we can perform restores faster to meet your SLAs. So it has that deduplication feature that's also a patent of Quantum. We call it the variable length deduplication. Then the thing that we would focus today are the tapes whereby we can provide you or propose to you tapes to protect your data or archive your data from months to years or probably infinitely as an offline protection against ransomware, or a long-term retention compliance, which provides the lowest cost as the storage. And from here, this slide shows that Quantum's storages that I mentioned earlier, the last three boxes on the portfolio, you can see that we are agnostic to whichever backup software that you would be utilizing or you are already using. So we can support that using the quantum storages that I have shown. So why tape is not dead? So tape is the offline storage solution for ransomware protection. Since any data written to vaulted tapes are considered physically offline from the application or the backup software or any network access. So this is the new use case of tape. And also, tape is the most cost-effective archive storage for long-term retention. So when additional capacity is required, basically it would require only more tapes versus upgrading disks for added capacity. So this is the traditional use case of the tape. So we'll go to ransomware. So what is ransomware? Ransomware is a type of malware that prevents users from accessing their system. It's either by locking your system or locking or encrypting the user files until a ransom is paid. So this is according to Trend Micro. So users normally encounters threats by by variety of means. So it can be downloading from a visited malicious or compromised website, or it can be delivered as an attachment from spam emails. And also, ransomware forces the users to pay ransom in exchange for their locked or hijacked data that results in downtime and revenue loss. So the threat of ransomware continues, and cyber attacks are getting more sophisticated during these times, no, and are holding organizations hostage until they pay millions of the ransom. Although most companies regularly back up the data, they are still vulnerable to ransom attacks that target entire networks and backup systems. So ransomware worldwide continues to increase as shown in this slide. In 2019, ransomware infections rose targeting storage and mobile applications. It has proliferated through every verticals and industries and continues its upward trend uh, as shown on the graph. So in 2021, the most affected organizations are healthcare and government. So in many cases, rendering them incapable of offering their services to patients and clients, especially these trying times of the pandemic. So how do we protect our data from ransomware attacks? So we have a few things that we must keep in mind, but I trim it down to 5, which I think these are the essentials for considering when you're dealing with ransomware. So first would be identify any potential security issues and secure all the entrances to your network. Possible entry points are through phishing emails. This means employees clicking through links in emails or during the or uh, or during the emergence of the COVID-19, cyber attacks have increasingly gained access through RDP or the remote desktop and server message blocks or the NAS access over the internet. So this shift follows that an influx of employees working remotely or working from home during the pandemic. So establishing a strong IT policy and keeping employees well informed on this on ransomware are very important. Then second would be implement a reputable antivirus software. Then next is back up your data, develop a proper data protection strategy, such as following the 3211 data protection rule that I'll be discussing on the next slides. So data should be backed up frequently and keep it out from the intruder's reach to ensure that data can be recovered when needed. Then next would be keep offline copies of your data. So how do we keep an offline copy of your data? So basically for this webinar, we would be discussing archiving to tape as the last line of defense and tape as the air gap, or you can say the offline protection for your data. Then lastly, determine whether disk, tape, or cloud or object storage will be the storage platforms for the best recovery methods for your organization, considering the SLAs. So regardless of the method you choose, keep in mind that ransomware protection and recovery must be in layers. So faster performing tiers such as flash, SSD, or hard disks are the critical component for fast data recovery for probably a storage for short-term backups. And next, it is a best practice to keep a copy of your data in a true offline media, such as tape, in a multi-layer approach. So tape has you can say an inherent nature to provide a physical air gap protection. Then I'll discuss right now the 3211 data protection rule. So this is actually a global standard, as well as some of the backup actually most of the backup software also follow this. So we call it the 3211. So the number 3 signifies you have to keep 3 copies of your data, one being the production data and 2 copies as your backup. And the number 2 signifies you have to keep your data in 2 different types of media, one being on disk and on tape. And the first number 1 signifies you have to have a backup copy off-site and online. Then the second number 1 signifies one backup copy is securely offline, such as in tape. Before I continue, Jordan would do a quick poll for us to understand better the landscape for Philippines of who are using tapes. Jordan? Hello, Jordan.
Yes, sir. It's already launched. You can answer on your screen. Our question is your company currently using tape? So just click in the answer if you're using or not, so we can know already. Sir CJ, we already have 9 responses from our attendees. Around 60% are saying that they're not using tape. I don't know if not using anymore or not yet using tape, but that's
Okay.
the effort. So with that, I would like to launch another poll for everybody. From those who does not use tape, do you have any plans or is considering in acquiring one? Just again, submit your answers through the buttons presented on your screen, so we can know your current plans if you have. Okay, so we have 6, Sir CJ. Now 7. All of them are not currently considering. I hope we can address that right now. So
Yeah.
we have 2 that are actually considering to have that. So
Okay.
there.
So
Sharon,
maybe okay. So maybe after the webinar, maybe we can see new insights on how we is there the value is there is still a value for tape. So right now I'll go to the scalar tape libraries of Quantum. So first up we have our scalar i6000. Uh, we have this as the enterprise model. So the slide shows this is a rack type of the tape library model of Quantum. So it can scale with your customer's data. It scales horizontally utilizing one continuous robot. A user can add expansion modules, actually expansion racks for scalability, or utilize capacity on demand, which is a license key enabled for slot growth. So basically, you just buy the additional license for utilizing the unlicensed slots. So the specifications here are shown. It can have as much as 192 tape drives inside the library. And we have our i6, which is a mid-range to enterprise model. This is the modular type. It also utilizes a continuous robot that moves across multiple library modules. Similar to i6000, users can add expansion modules for scalability, capacity on demand, and utilize capacity using a license key enabled for slot growth. So you can start small and grow as needed. So the i6 utilizes full height drives similar to the i6000. And next we have our scalar i3. The i3 scales vertically with up to 400 slots in a 24U form factor. So basically, it's a 3U form factor module. So for every module, it's 3U. And it can have a maximum of 3 drives for a single module and maximum of 50 slots inside the library. Then you can grow as needed by adding more modules. So what makes the scalar tape libraries different? We have our a ransomware free. We can say the ransomware free zone. We call it the active vault feature as protection from ransomware. That I have a separate slide for that. And most of the integrity checks of the tape, we have a feature we call EDLM, or Extended Data Lifecycle Management. So basically, it's another tape drive that scans the integrity of your tape. And as a result, you can also validate if your data written on tape is still restorable. And in terms of data security, there's an optional feature wherein we call it SKM, or Scalar Key Manager, that we can integrate to the tape library to encrypt the tapes. So it's an AES 256-bit encryption. Then we normally, and basically the tape libraries are unique, has a unique integration with the leading backup softwares in the market. So as summary, these are the tape libraries that we have: the i3, the i6000, and the i3, the i6, and the i6000. So as you can see, currently the i3 supports LTO6 to LTO8 generations, having the half-height tape drives. Then the i6 and the i6000 supports LTO6 up until LTO9. So LTO9 was recently released, actually third quarter of this year. So presently, the one released are only full height drives. That's why it only supports the i6 and the i6000. But coming soon, it would be supported by the i3 once the half-height drives LTO9 would be released, probably late this Q4 or probably Q1 of next year. So this is the traditional use case of tape. So backup softwares and applications that run on the server write traditionally to tapes for archive or long-term retention. But primary backups are still written on disk for faster restore, and normally we do the restores for the most recent backups that we did for any companies. Then data or backups copies are made to tape and it's sent off-site for long-term retention and DR. So basically, the primary storages or the disks are having the deduplication feature to provide capacity savings. But data copy made on tape are sent off-site for DR and long-term retention. So for the new use case of tape, it's all about offline and not off-site. So this is the new use case as protection for ransomware. Since ransomware attacks data that are online. And like the traditional use case, short-term backups are still written to disk and archived on long-term to tape. So, but the difference would be we no longer offsite the tape to another location, but instead we move the tapes to another partition inside the library, having that active vault feature instead of normally when we do vaulting, we eject the tapes physically outside the library. So there's a manual intervention of the operators. So instead, the tape libraries, the scalar tape libraries automates the movement of the tapes or vaulting of the tapes to another partition that's not detected by the backup software or the application. So we call that active vault. So active vault, as the protection from ransomware, vaults or moves the tapes into another partition, as mentioned, not accessible over the network by the application. So the active vault partition, the way you cannot access the data there is wherein you cannot add drives or tape drives to the active vault partition to mount the tapes and perform a restore. And it can also, we cannot connect the servers to the active vault partition. And one thing to keep in mind is only the administrators of the backup can access the active vault partition within the tape library. So the movement can be automated by setting up policies inside the library when tapes in the active vault partition are required for restore. Tapes are then moved back to the production partition utilized by the backup application if there's a need to restore. And the active vault benefits. So it provides secure and offline data storage for your archive. It saves operator time. So operators no longer need to go to the data center to gather the tapes to be vaulted and probably place the vaulted tapes into a tape room, having to do manual tape handling. So it eliminates manual tape handling actually. It also saves storage space since vaulted tapes are inside the library. There's no longer a need to set up a tape room with the environmental requirement to maintain tape integrity and data integrity. So it's also transparent to the application or to the backup software. It eliminates and minimizes risk of physical tape damage or loss. And lastly, it enables proactive tape condition monitoring. So since it's inside the library, the tapes can be monitored proactively by the administrators, and the tape library can send the alerts via email to the administrators if there would be problems with the tape. So before we continue, there's another poll that Jordan would be asking from you. Jordan?
All right. So thank you, sir. I have launched another poll. So for those who have answered yes, that they are using a tape solution, may I know which LTO generation are you currently using? There are LTO 6, 7, and 8. But if you are using an older version of it, you can take the older generation choice. Thank you. Okay, there's one that's using older generation. Two actually. There are now four. Okay, so we have five responses earlier, sorry CJ, that they're using still they're using tape solution. So from the four responses, they're actually using older generation, so that's older than LTO6, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. So, for this slide, this is the LTO roadmap. So, uh, currently, we are on LTO 6 up until LTO 9. So, LTO 9, as mentioned earlier, has been recently released. And the previous LTO version generations are also shown here. So for backward compatibility, so say for an LTO 7 tape drive, it can read and write to an LTO 6 tape and read to an LTO 5 tape for backward compatibility. But for LTO 8 and 9, the LTO consortium uh, develop a new technology to support the larger capacity for the newer generations. It the backward compatibility is one version down. So for say for an LTO 8, it can only read and write to an LTO 7 tape. Okay, um, so I mentioned earlier the LTO 9 has been recently released, and the LTO 6 recently was announced EOL end of life this December 2021, and would be end of service life by December 31, 2026. So the lifespan of each LTO generation is always a consensus of the LTO consortium. So who are the LTO consortium? So it's comprised of Quantum, IBM, and HP. So it is a group of companies that directs development and manages licensing, certification of the LTO media, and the mechanism manufacturers. And part of the LTO consortium are also the multiple vendors of or the tape manufacturers such as Fujifilm, Sony, Imation, and they also must adhere to the standards defined by the LTO consortium. Now, for some tape library use cases, similarly, use cases that I'll be showing are within Asia, but outside the Philippines for our customers' security, unless we have approvals from the existing customers to share them as references. So we have our here Bank of China. So the use case is for file archive and backup system. Excuse me. So since Bank of China is a financial institution, they record the video. They have records and video simultaneously that are backups backed up using our tape libraries. So apart from the tape libraries, they also utilize other quantum solutions as well. So why do they consider quantum? Quantum supports a quite large number of files, and the tape library can do partitions within a single library presented to different backup applications. So to share with you, here's a quick view of their network. So Exelis is configured, is a solution of Quantum that I mentioned earlier uh, that runs on the StoreNext file system. So basically, they have videos that are written to the Exelis, having the disk storage for short term. Then they archive as well to tape on a partition made for the Exelis. Then similarly, they have the net backup as the backup software, writing backups short term to our DXI storage, disk storage, then archiving as well to tape on another partition. Then Exelis here does the replication to another site, and it also writes or they offsite the tape to the other library in the second site. Next would be Agricultural Bank of China. So they have large amounts of data that needs to be backed up. So similar to the Philippines, whereby they have a regulatory body such as similar to Philippines, they have some kind of Banco Central. So part of their regulatory compliance is to have an offsite copy on tape. So the requirement is more a lot of data, terabytes of data in a day. They have 40 data centers because of the large landscape of China, including Beijing and Shanghai. So our quantum solution that we proposed and they are presently using are two scalar i6000s. So why did they consider quantum? It's because it's highly uh, stable and of course the lowest cost effective storage for archival. And sharing with you is their network. Similarly they have a net backup backup software, writing their data on disk for short-term backups to provide performance when doing restores, then archive their long-term data to tape. So this diagram only shows for a single site. And similarly, this is also the setup on their second site. And lastly, we have Bangkok Broadcasting NTV. So this is a media and entertainment company that has a lot of digital content that is rapidly growing, and their primary storage is has limited capacity. So their requirement is to consolidate their backups and archive into a system that is also compatible with their MAM, or what we call the Media Asset Management software. So the solution that we provided to them is also a Scalar i6000. And why did they consider quantum? They have a previous generation of our Scalar i6000, generation 1. So presently they're using the generation 2. And as a cost savings for their upgrade to the i6000 tape library, they moved to the generation 2. And they see the value of integrating the partition to their existing i6000. So a quick view of their network. They have a media asset management they call VizRT. Excuse me. So they have their data is written on disk for the short term, then writes their archive as well to the i6000. And similarly, their media assets are also being mapped to the scalar LTFS. So basically, the function of the LTFS is to map the tape drives as a network drive, similar to NAS. So they can see the data of written to tape as a shared folder over their network. So that's the function of the LTFS. And also another partition made within the same i6000, they are using EMC or Dell EMC Networker for their backups. So short-term backups are writing to disk, then archive or long-term retention still on tape. Actually, I have another slide. We have DSO National Laboratory. So this is a defense and research and development. So the requirement is to consolidate the research data from multiple NAS storages into a central repository for easier management. So they're looking to a single namespace for their NAS. So that's for our Exelis workflow director having the StoreNext file system. Then the archive are still being written to a Scalar i6 tape library. So why did they consider quantum? So it's a blend of disk and tape for capacity that they see a lower OPEX and CAPEX for cold data, which is written on tape. Then they also make use of our EDLM to check the integrity of the tapes. So this is their network diagram. They have their Exelis file system that has the disk storage for short term, Then the tape archival is going to our i6. So in summary, tape is the air gap solution for ransomware protection. And tape is the most cost-effective archive solution for long-term protection up until present. And tape is the essential component in the 3211 data protection rule. So if you notice, the LTO consortium is still developing new LTO generations or technologies because they still see the value of tape during the present days whereby customers are moving into cloud. But to share with you, we have a public cloud customer that utilizes our tape libraries for cold data. So basically, their production data is still on disk. Then the least access data are being moved to tape. But when they recover from tape, it's moved back to disk. That if there's a need to access the data back, so they restore it to the disk storage. So even though the people are moving to public cloud or maybe private cloud, uh, the cloud vendors are still using tape. So similarly, that's the reason we are still offering to customers the value of tape as the solution for ransomware protection. Oh, so actually, this is my last slide, and thank you for listening. I hope I gave you insights to tape, and probably hope to hear from you soon if you will be considering quantum solution. Thank you. And I'll give you back to France.
So that's it for our activity for today. So we hope we have helped you understand how the quantum solution can help you in the business. And also we will be contacting you maybe next week so we can set an in-depth or deep dive presentation. And on behalf of Quantum Philippines and WSI, I would like to say thank you for joining us and have a great day. Hope to see you again on our next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.